Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 27th open session of the Growth Committee. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to see a full house. We're going to kick off today with the approval of the minutes from July 26th. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Deputy Councillor Lowe, excellent. On the question, all those in favor, say aye. Thank you very much. Okay, so next we'll need the approval of the agenda for today. Councillor Lowe and Deputy, okay. On the question, all those in favor? Yay. All right, next is the disclosures of conflict of interest. Do we have any today? No? Okay, great. Next, we're going to move into item 5, which is the consent agenda. And Craig Levine, I believe, is going to... Okay, I just have his name listed here. Okay, right, sorry. So in the consent agenda, do we have a mover and a seconder or any questions? Okay, Deputy, seconded by Councillor Lowe. On the question, all in favor? Aye, great. Okay, so getting right into it, it's item 6.1 with the draft affordable housing action plan, and we're going to kick it off with Director Phil Ouellette.
Through the chair to members of the committee, while St. John, our province, and our country faces an affordable housing crisis, I'm happy to share with you today that St. John is prepared to take action. Common Council's vision as part of its priorities was to facilitate a mixed affordable housing in all of our neighborhoods, and staff, along with the community consultants and a tremendous group of volunteers supporting the Affordable Housing Action Team, have completed its work to present this draft with you today. This process started over a year ago when we contemplated placing this into our 2022 work plan and prepared the project charter and undertook an initial engagement with community partners. As you will recall, we were before a growth committee in late July 2022 with our initial draft, but we wanted to make sure that everyone in the community had the time to review the action plan and offer additional feedback. This additional review period is now completed. And as a result, some additional changes have been made to further strengthen the plan. The plan that is before you today is one that will enhance St. John as a vibrant, inclusive, and thriving community with a diverse range of safe and affordable housing. There are 39 recommendations in the plan, and this is an important point. There's no silver bullet in affordable housing. And to enhance our ability to deliver on affordable housing, this plan incorporates a multitude of actions across various areas to maximize our ability to generate impact and sustainable change. This plan will introduce immediate and important shifts in affordable housing in St. John, including how we organize ourselves, new funding, partnerships with other levels of government, spurring development, among many others. I can speak on behalf of the consultants, staff, and the dedicated group of volunteers that at every step of the way, we asked ourselves the questions, is this far enough? What else can we do? And will this have a tangible impact? The plan presented to you today is not a small move, but a transformational move. For example, while the 2023 budget has not yet been approved and further discussions are required, the combined expenditure that this plan calls for in 2023 amounts to approximately $1 million. Recognizing that the city was not heavily engaged in or resourced to support affordable housing in the past, this is an important symbol of the change that is on our horizon. You will learn more about the actions in the coming presentations, but I would like to personally thank everyone who supported and developed this plan. Most of all, and because they will not be thanked before the end of this presentation, I would like to recognize Andy Reid, who's been the project lead for this initiative. Andy has a calm, analytical, and compassionate approach to strategic planning, and his leadership on this project was instrumental in so many ways, from engagement to research to coordination to partnerships, writing, among many others. So thank you, Andy. With that, the next speaker in our list is somebody that everybody knows very well, and we're very happy to have him with us today, is the Executive Director of the Human Development Council, Randy Hatfield. So I'd ask him to please join us at the podium.
Thank you, Phil. Councillor Clone, Deputy Mayor McKenzie, members of the Growth Committee, thanks for the opportunity to appear again, briefly, to highlight the Affordable Housing Task Force report and what it hopes to do. You can just feel the momentum now that's developing in the community around this file, and for very good reason. And speaking of momentum, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the group of community developers that will be presenting later on. I mean, I think when you think of affordable housing, when you think of neighborhood development, when you think of the capacity of the community to move some of these thorny files forward, we really have evidence today of a presence and an ability to move forward. The task force report is transformational, as Phil said, because it speaks to an engagement of the municipality on a file that it has traditionally left to senior levels of government. And I know over the years, in a post-equal opportunity environment, there's always this tension of who does what. You don't want to get into somebody else's lane, but something like housing and affordable housing blends and blurs. It's a federal responsibility for funding. It's a provincial responsibility for jurisdiction. It's a municipal responsibility for how it plays out on the ground. And I think it all connects. And I do want to acknowledge here today the important resolution of council last night unanimously to look forward to a municipal housing entity. And that just builds on what was already in the report, and it fast tracks it. And I think that, again, is a demonstration of the urgency that council feels about moving forward on something like this. The report calls for a full-time employee to be embedded within the planning department of the City of St. John to oversee a policy and a program that will provide more affordable housing to residents in this community. Hopefully it will lead to a sense within the planning department that housing is a planning priority, that of all the things that planners do, and they are myriad and often unseen, to have a lens of housing, to have that as a priority, I think will serve us well moving forward in the next couple of years. The report also calls for the seeding of a fund initially of $800,000, which we can always quibble as to whether it's enough or whether it's going to be sufficient to meet the needs of the community. But as there's a demonstration effect of something like this. When you have skin in the game, when there's something there on the part of the city, there is an element of accountability that arises and an element of keeping people focused on the task at hand. And again, last night's announcement, I think, was a very thoughtful move on the city to let's investigate the housing entity and see if that can bring more resources into this community. The report acknowledges the critical role of the nonprofit developer community, and I think that was echoed last night. I think we have seen evidence in the past that private market can accommodate private interests, but we have interests now that transcend that. We have an obligation to residents of this community to make sure that people aren't left behind. When you do take a look at the metropolitan area, when you look at median family incomes in Quispam and in Rothsay and in Grand Bay Westfield compared to St. John, you do see a difference. We do have a couple of distinct communities and worlds that are within our metropolitan area. So I think the city taking a lead role in providing housing, on planning for housing, and on drawing the partners together will be an important step forward. Importantly, the city's Affordable Housing Task Force targets its efforts on low and moderate income residents. Again, private interests will look after private concerns. This is a community concern now. We have an affordability issue along with an availability issue. So to target efforts and resources to understand that low and moderate income families in this community deserve priority attention. The report also acknowledges the fact that we do live in a metropolitan area, and soon a Regional Services Commission, to be very ably led, is going to be tackling some regional problems. And I think that is, again, an acknowledgement that within a metropolitan area, boundaries blur, and that we are, in fact, one economic unit, arguably a social unit. We're just not politically integrated. So this effort through a Regional Services Commission to align interests, to bring together suburban municipalities along with the central city is a positive step forward. I would like to thank very much the members of the advisory committee that met over the last year. Also, the principal consultants who provided evidence and embarked upon, I think, a very impressive engagement process that took into account the interests of residents in the community and the nonprofit developer community. And again, I go back to last night's motion that aligns very well to a final tweak in the Affordable Housing Task Force report, which was investigating potential governance enhancements that can accelerate the outcomes of the Affordable Housing Action Plan. So there is an alignment with that. There's a reflection of the sense of urgency that's there. And I do want to thank the Growth Committee and ultimately Council who will have carriage of this. But I can tell you that the group assembled around the Affordable Task Force is very much in support of this report and recommends it with enthusiasm. Thank you.
We're going to take a question, or sorry, we're going to actually invite Andy Reid up to the podium before we're going to do questions, if that's okay. Deputy? Okay.
First of all, just to really thank members of the action team. Thank you, Randy, for being here today. Jody, the other members of the team, Kit, Narinder, Seth, Kent, Jeff, I think I've captured them all. Without the really generous amount of their time and energy they gave to this project, I don't think the plan would be what it's become over the past year. And to echo what Randy said, as they're here today, thank you to the neighborhood developers. These folks helped us survey over 100 residents that we really wouldn't have otherwise reached during the engagement process. So their assistance was really appreciated. So during this process, we learned the complexity and urgency of the problem. Housing costs have risen faster than incomes. With increased demand, renters have become particularly vulnerable, especially in a community like ours where 40% of the renters have incomes less than $20,000 a year and wait lists are high. We've also learned of the continued demand for access to non-market housing through our action team. We've learned of the great work the local nonprofit housing providers have been doing literally for decades. So today it's really about reflection, I think, and looking forward on what's next. It's been 2 months since the plan was before the committee, and it's really exciting to be back in front of you with a final copy of the plan. This plan, with its 39 actions, it's comprehensive. It leaves no rock unturned, be it nonprofit, public, or private housing solutions. This will have to be a collaborative community effort. This is the theme we've been talking about all along. But I would like to just highlight some of the key city-led actions that the plan sets out over the next 3 years, if you kind of imagine a draft work plan. So this year, we're aiming on getting the fund up and running. We're aiming on supporting National Housing Week, which will happen in November, and establishing that housing facilitator function within the city. 2023 is about setting up the Housing Advisory Committee. It's about exploring those governance enhancements through the committee. And it's about looking at our surplus and underutilized land policies. Housing and planning really do work together, and unquestionably there's work to be done in reviewing our own zoning bylaws, incorporating housing into our neighborhood planning. In 2024, municipal plan review may be on the horizon. It's certainly housing is an aspect of that. We're looking at our incentives program, promoting mid-density forms. So these are just a few of the actions kind of handpicked on top of ongoing actions that will be happening throughout this time. That includes greater local coordination of housing programs, advocacy activities, monitoring and reporting, and coordination of efforts with the adjacent jurisdictions, as well as a public awareness campaign. We need to look at development in terms of NIMBYism, YIMBYism. How do we ensure, to use Randy's words, which I think I've used as well, housing has that planning lens. I'm going to close here soon, but just would like to give a shout out as well to the city staff who were involved throughout this, growth and newcomers, transit, legal, GIS, building inspection, communications, and procurement. And certainly, last but not least, acknowledgement to Ken and Ed, our consultants, whose experience and expertise have really skillfully guided us through this process. We're very appreciative of the integrity of their work, and really from what I've seen, going above and beyond and showing their care and engaging our community. So to speak practically in terms of scheduling, we're here today. We'd set October 31st as kind of a last date for council that we aim to have the plan approved. But if there's will of the committee today, we could always look at a closer date too. There's the upcoming October 3rd council meeting. I can say from our last meeting with the action team that we are very eager to move forward with the plan. Madam Chair, I would now introduce our consultants, Ken and Ed from SHS Consulting and REFAC, to give a recap of our planning process and the August engagement activities.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your kind remarks, Andy, and for the background material. As mentioned, my name is Ken Foles. I'm with REFAC Consulting. With me today is Ed Starr, a partner with SHS Consulting, and collectively our firms have been working on this process for about the last year, as mentioned, in consultation with staff quite closely, with the action team, and through consultation, a number of entities and members in the community. So we've been very pleased to have that time with folks today. I believe there's a presentation deck that is being loaded. All right. Perfect. So as mentioned, today is really important, and I think it's been underscored by other speakers that today is really the culmination of months of work in terms of exploring issues, identifying the problems out in the community, talking with stakeholders about not only those issues and what the priorities should be in terms of addressing them, but thinking about different solutions and how we might propose to do that. Our goal today is to give a very quick overview of the plan itself and the process, to highlight where some of the feedback we've gotten over the last month since we last spent our time with this committee, and to talk about briefly steps forward.
They started saying, we will put a certain percentage into affordable housing, which lights us up at PAC, and there's no guarantee that it's going to be affordable housing. Then we come to council, and they come and they give us our little story at council. Then again at the end, they say, we're going to do X number units, affordable housing. We suck it all up. And then they build a unit, there's no affordable housing. There's no guarantee. To me, as a member of PAC and as a member of council, that's a big problem. Because when they say they're going to do a percentage of affordable housing, most cases, they get it approved. And I can give you examples. And I can give you examples that we've never seen them again. And I give you examples where they can build and don't have to build any affordable housing. And that's a problem. And it's a provincial problem, I believe. And it has to be worked out for us guys and girls in PAC and for us in council, because they can come and build it, and they can do market prices for all of them and do no affordable housing at all. And just say they forgot or, couldn't get it done or whatever. I was going to swear if ever or not, I'm a Catholic, right? Whatever it is, it's done. And I think that's one of the biggest problems when we talk about affordable housing. And I mean, I don't know how it gets rectified, but to me, it's a problem.
Thank you, Counselor. I am thrilled to see this and thrilled to be where we're at right now. And Randy, your words were very impactful, and just how far the city has come. And I know you've been studying and learning about it deeply. So we're eager to get started here, and I'm so proud of staff and in awe of you all and how hard you've worked on this, because it's not often we can say that government moves very quickly. So I think one of the pieces in here I loved as well was about how we are having an evolving system. So we are rejecting the traditional and moving away from there and trying to get creative and smart and strategic with this complex problem. But I think the more we learn about the problem, the more we learn about the ways forward and what solutions there are going to be. So assuming, I don't think there's any other questions from us right now. So if I think if we can get this passed today, we'll have, the city manager has told me that we can actually put this on the council's docket on October 3rd, which would actually be moving up our timeline an entire month. So like I said, wow, we're moving more quickly. So if I can get a mover and a seconder, then we can get this motion read, which is that the Growth Committee receive and file the attached report and presentation and recommend to Common Council that they adopt the attached Affordable Housing Action Plan. Would you like to say another piece here, Deputy?
Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to get this thing moving. So yeah, I'll move the motion.
Excellent, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Lowe. And on the question, all those in favor? Hooray! Excellent work, everyone. Thank you so much. Motion passed, carried. Okay, on to our next exciting component of the day. We have the direct resident support in our neighborhoods, and Director Phil Ouellette is going to introduce.
Through the chair to members of the committee, I'd like to introduce Tamara Kelly, who is the executive director with One Change and oversight of the Nick Nicole Community Center. Just for a little background, she started in May 2020, just before the pandemic. Since that time, we've all really admired Tamara's passion and leadership that she's offered to the role and to the North End community. Tamara shows a commitment to improving the lives of those around her, with a special interest in supporting those who are in the highest need and marginalized. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all the other community leaders that are here with us today. I don't think we say it enough as a municipality to those recipients of our service agreements and our partners in the neighborhoods. The work that you do each and every day in each neighborhood is incredibly valuable to the city, and our community is better because of you and the work that you do. So I did want to thank all of you for being here today. We're all very excited for this presentation, and with that, we'll pass it on to Tamara.
Very much. All right, I will just make sure that we get this going. Does it just auto? Okay. Well, all right. So I am Tamara Kelly. I am with One Change, and I'm going to introduce the leadership team to the Neighborhood Developer Pilot Project. So with us today, we have Ann Driscoll from Crescent Valley Resource Center, Heather Chase, the chair of Pulse, and Jen Oliver from Carlton Community Center. With them, we have those that will present on the specifics to the work of the neighborhood developer. And we have Mary Lesage, Rachel Milne, Caitlin Mitchell, and Tim Chafee. So I'm horrible with names. So, so we want to thank you very much, Chair Killen and members of Growth Committee for having us here today so that we could talk about what we have done with the pilot project. So just to give you an introduction into the whole neighborhood developer project, what it was 4 priority neighborhoods came together of the Old North End, Crescent Valley, Lower South, and Lower West. And the idea was to, because of what we had seen during COVID and being able to still be open while a lot of services had to close or had to go remotely, we saw an increasing need in our residents, especially the most vulnerable. You know, a lot of us forget there was a time that cash was not accepted, and that was something that affected our residents substantially, you know. even transportation, all of those things became issues. And so we start to see it grow and grow. And of course, now over time, we have seen the increase in rent evictions as well as an increase in food insecurity. So basically, when we proposed the direct resident engagement, the most important thing that we had is that it had to be embedded in the communities. So it had to be community-based to those neighborhoods, because as much as the neighborhoods get lumped together, we are different. You know, a lot of things are the same, but our community concerns and makeup is different. So the approaches that we have to take with our residents and the broader community, it varies. So that was one of the things we realized. And it had to be full-time. We went through a phase where when we were first getting the funding for the project, that there was a chance it was going to be cut. And then, of course, what do you do as a nonprofit? You start going, well, can we do this part-time? Can we do this? And the four of us were like, nope, we're going all in or we're out. So luckily, through the Community Foundation, we were able to secure the funding that will last from September 2021 till May of 2023. So with that, so why do we need the position in the neighborhood? Well, basically, we work here every day. And as you go through the different neighborhoods, you'll see what an everyday can kind of look like on top of everything else that we're doing, depending on the makeup of our facility. A lot of our residents tend to stay in our neighborhoods, right? You know, so old North Enders, they like the North End. They don't want to venture uptown. Not that there's anything wrong with uptown, but that's just how it is. Basically, the other thing too is it's not new. And I remember Councilor McKenzie saying to me during when we had a display on it, saying, we've gone through these iterations before of a navigator, of a coordinator, of these positions have existed in different forms. When the funding runs out, of course, we do not have the ability to continue with them. There was a time too, Crescent Valley and Old North End shared a navigator, and then they were managed by a committee, and that had its own issues, and that's why the embedding in the community was so important. What this project allows us to do is assess the need on the base of our residents, right? So it's not us going in and assuming by our own values what our residents need. It's actually them telling us through whether it be surveys, conversations, what we see as they're coming in, what we know about our neighborhoods. It's not about, well, they need this or they need that. And we get that a lot of, you know, assumptions being made, and the residents know what they need. You know, they're quite capable in that sense. And, you know, when you think about what happened a lot with COVID, a lot of our services went online. So when you don't have access to even a telephone, online is not an area to go. If you have low literacy rates, those are situations. So, and these things take time when you're working directly with a resident on it. So just to give you an idea of how we've been successful, we are a piece of the pie. You know, so there are all kinds of things. You know, we know about the by names list. We know about the NB housing list. We know, and housing has become a big conversation, obviously, with the Affordable Housing Initiative. You know, we've been able to help the city get into our neighborhoods and contact some of our most vulnerable residents that may shy away from giving that information or may not have a comfort to do so. So we've been able to do that. We're building networks and supports to assist in our neighborhoods, and we do have those. It's having that one person that's actually in charge of those now. You know, instead of, oh, talk to, you know, I'll use the example, talk to Krista at the front desk because Krista knows this person, and then, oh, I think Tamara has this contact back there, right? You know, so this is more of organizing it. You know, we're also filling that mental health gap, which is a huge theme right now, and you know, systemic through the whole city, just by being an heir to our residents. Like, it's okay, we'll figure this out. Somebody's working with you. You know, we see a lot of frustration in our residents when they're trying to navigate phone calls or any of those sort of things. So to give you an idea of our scope, basically, you know, surveys to date, we've done over 300 focus groups, 80 participants. We've also been helping with the awareness about the garbage changes because that does really affect our neighborhoods. Then also we we promoted the whole Main Street so that there is an awareness on the Main Street revitalization, as well as income tax clinics, and we'll get a little bit more into those for a while. So we do offer community volunteer income tax clinics, which are for residents of low income. And what that does is help them not go to services that they have to pay for, and also allows them to file their taxes, which is very much a trust thing. So the collective impact with that, with our housing, we have housed 13 people through the Neighborhood Developer Project, and that's either experiencing homelessness or eviction or rent eviction. So we do have residents that are evicted for various reasons outside of rent evictions too, but they need a place to live. So working within the community, those are the things that we've been able to look at. With housing support, we've been able to keep people housed. So we have 19 on that list. Education resources, sometimes people don't know where to go. Plus, we also know what is available in our communities, whether it be workplace essential skills or connections to other learning opportunities. Food security, this is directly with the neighborhood developers. The neighborhoods as its own, and you'll see at different reports that we provide to the city, the food security issue is huge, but just direct work with the neighborhood developers. And then with taxes. So when you talk about low income and what your scope is, when you're looking at affordable housing, 1,810 people filed their taxes through these 4 neighborhoods. What that amounts to is a return on investment is $3.6 million into the economy because they start getting their benefits. And we do have people come in that haven't filed and are not receiving benefits. We have a big spike in April, May, and then July because checks don't arrive, right? So being able to offer that service is huge to the community, and it grows. And it's also expanded into the newcomer population too as well, because the newcomer population is settling into our communities too. Financial assistance, the 37 have been helped with health cards through the province, emergency situations, forms. It's unbelievable how many low-income forms come out in a year, and knowing when they're going to be processed, catching the people as they're coming through the centers, very important. And then also, of course, mental health and addictions is a huge issue in our communities, and we've been able to assist 32 people to receive the resources that they need, as well as something like legal aid can be a referral. And sometimes just making that phone call and helping them through those processes is what is most important in that regard. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to the other neighborhoods, well, and my neighborhood, I guess, and we'll present on the specifics of what the reality is in that. All right, Caitlin.
Hello. So I'll be speaking on behalf of One Change. We're going to start with an agency reality just to kind of demonstrate where we're at without the neighborhood developer. So we are a fully functioning community center. Our front desk kind of serves as our triage station to kind of filter people through as their needs are met. On top of the recreational services we offer to all ages at no cost, our day-to-day kind of looks a little bit like the slide up top. So we have about 300 people seeking emergency food per year. Of those, we also have about 286 being referred to the appropriate wraparound food security services as well. Of our regular visitors, we see about 10 to 20 of our most vulnerable community members on a day-to-day basis, accessing coffee, food, and sometimes just someone to talk to. In an area with an 80% renter rate, we're seeing about 4 to 6 housing cases a month. And as they have not increased in the frequency, they definitely are becoming more and more complex as we move through the system. And on top of that, we also offer those tax services as well as all the 4 other neighborhoods. So we accomplish about 648 personal taxes, and we still have people coming in on a weekly basis to fill those out as well. And then we also support some education programs within our agency as well. So workplace essential skills, GED, and our One Future digital marketing program as well. The reality of the neighborhood developer is that this is a designated full-time person. At the One Change neighborhood developer provide support to about 40 residents, 2 of which have been added since our report was handed in. Housing services are very clearly the highest need in the community with that 80% renter rate and the rate of evictions, and or people experiencing homelessness. Because of these complex cases, it can take about 45 hours of work to get these people housed. And these hours include initial intake, SPDAT or BNL assessments, getting them on the MB housing list, getting them on the BNL, and then also reaching out to all of our contacts, presenting at case conference, and all the kind of behind the scenes work that also goes into it. We are definitely taking a community-based development approach. So we decided to go with the ABCD method, which very much takes the perspective of the community into consideration at the highest form. So we ask them what they value in their community, what assets they see, and where they would like to see the improvements. And we're basing a lot of our outcomes and our projects upon those results. The overarching ideal is to build capacity within community by expanding and strengthening assets within the neighborhood. We've already made steps with the city to meet with Jennifer Kirchner about this as well, so things are moving forward. Through this lens, each agency conducted our ABCD focus groups, where they were able to gain resident perspective for each individual neighborhood. The thing that really came out for us on North End ended up being the amount of community pride. North Enders love living in the North End, and they definitely do not want to leave. Something that might come a bit surprising to people is how safe people feel in the community as well, as they know all of their neighbors and they've known them for many years. And that very directly juxtaposes what we've kind of come to know about the Old North End and the stereotypes that exist about it. It was really beautiful to see the level of love that they have for the community and how willing they are to participate with us to make sure that better things are happening for everyone. For my impact statement, we're just up on the board there with what they actually expressed to us, but just to give a little bit of context as to the situation we were looking at a senior adult and their young adult child originally had been referred to us through one of our education programs as the young adult child was seeking to further his education and gain employment. It was expressed to the coordinator of that program that they were currently living in a very unsafe situation in which they were living on a stranger's couch and living with fear for their lives at the time. There was also consideration to the fact that they did need a pet-friendly apartment as they had a dog, and there was also some underlying health conditions for the senior father as well. So through all the processes that went into getting them housed, we kind of started with getting them on the MB housing list, getting them on the by names list. And then we also did a SPDAT with them. We were able to present their case at case conference 3 times. And through those partnerships, we were able to get them a portable subsidy attached to the father's life. And they are currently in an apartment. Their gratitude can really only be expressed by the words that the young adult child had given to us, and that they are extremely grateful and are so content with where they're at now. And we just are very happy to be able to have facilitated that for them, and hope to continue to be able to do that for many others as well as we continue this. I will turn it over to Mary from Pulse going forward.
Thank you. I was involved in the conversation when we first started back 2 years ago. It was amazing to be part of that, and so I'm privileged to be standing here in front of you because I was moved from the beginning, and I feel like this program spoke out to Pulse because we were one of the lowest, 20 hours a week is what I worked at Pulse. That's what our service agreement with the city gave us. But even with that, our 741 tax returns, and that was as of a month ago, I think. So even then, we've done probably 60 to 70 more on top of that. In the string of a year, we'll do well over 1,000 tax returns at Pulse, and I'm pretty proud of that number because it's something that we've been pretty consistent with over the years, and people move out of the South End, but they come back to get their taxes done because they have that safety feeling there. It's one of, they know us, we know them, we know the situation. They don't have to come in and tell us a story. It is for, we talk about the CVIT program, it is a low-income program, but it's also, some people they may be working, but they may fall on hard times and they're not working. So you bring in that $80,000, that doesn't mean that that's what they're making right now. So anyways, that's just my little talk about community and volunteer income tax program, because I'm pretty proud of that. So as I said, prior to the neighborhood development project, I worked 25 hours at Pulse. So a lot of my dealings were off the side of my desk. I couldn't do everything. I had a wonderful volunteer brigade, I like to call them. They totally looked after the food program. And that was fresh fruit and vegetables. That was the emergency food pantry we had available at that time. And we introduced hot lunches last year as well, and the numbers up there, even the numbers, we probably pushed that up to about 80 grab-and-go meals a month now. But so, and I'm very blessed at Pulse. We have a Horizon community navigator, community developer at our office that's available to all 5 neighborhoods. And so we're blessed to have Samara with us. And we were also able to utilize the pedal program and employ another staff for 30 hours for 30 weeks. So my big boast to my community partners, while I doubled my staff, and she's still there. She's still there now as our resident engagement coordinator. So after moving into the ND role, which has been over a year now, I've been able to continue with the lasting, meaningful relationships that I've built with the residents over the past years. And so I have been at Pulse since 2010. I was the first and only paid staff there for quite a while. And yeah, we still have, I've seen some people that have been there since day one. So the residents coming in and using even stop in to visit just to let us know that they're okay if they've moved out of the neighborhood. I have approximately 23 residents who I meet with on a long-term basis to provide ongoing continued support. And that could be anywhere from the housing needs to income needs, which we've heard before. It's applying for different programs. We have a few seniors in our midst, and CPP, they like to send out the forms a year ahead of time, but sometimes they get missed, they get moved, and they're all of a sudden they're looking for some OAS and CPP. And also to food security issues. And we all know there's no quick fixes for these, and can take anywhere from as few as 1 to 2 visits to as many as 15 plus more. So, and I would say I've spent close to 645 hours working with residents. And as we say, to coin a phrase we often use at Pulse, we never know what crisis will walk through our door in the run of a day. So we certainly don't sit back and say, wow, it's awful quiet here, because that's just the worst thing you can say, and somebody will walk through and we don't know what the crisis will be. And another huge piece for this position for me has been reconnecting with organizations within the city. Even today, just before I came here, an email came across my desk to reconnect with the Learning Exchange and the Women's Empowerment Network since they amalgamated last year. And that's one of many that I could say that I've, received in the last little bit. So I have a little impact story to tell. So many of you probably know, low-income seniors benefit comes out once a year. It's a province of New Brunswick credit, $400, comes out April 1st. I have people lined up at the door and we do it online for them or we print it off if they want to do the old school way. First week of May, one of our regulars, seniors, came in. We've known her for the last couple of years. She's attended lunch programs that we offer in the summertime. She'd come out and have some lunch. And she's like, what's this $400 that everybody's getting? How do I get that? And I'm like, oh, well, I have a few income-based questions for you. And have you done your taxes? Oh, yeah, I think my daughter's done that. And I said, okay, well, I said, can I check on that for you? Yeah, that's great. So one of the beauties of the CVITP program is that we can autofill. So we can take a person's identity, their SIN number, and that's why this trust factor is so important with them. She gave me the information I needed, and a day later, we were like, she hasn't filed her taxes in 12 years. So she's 77. She's no longer working. I don't know how she's been living. I don't know how she's been paying her rent. It's just, it's never come up in conversation. So I have the conversation and I'm like, well, we need to file these taxes for you. Okay, we'll get that done. So we went back 12 years of taxes for her. She worked up until 2 years ago. So she had tax return, she had a refund every single year for 12 years of a minimum of $1,700 to $1,800. Plus the GST that she was entitled to, plus her CPP, OAS, and unfortunately we learned that that doesn't go back. You get a year, 13 months, I think at top. But so this is one of the many cases. And if we hadn't built the trust with her, where would she be? She was literally less than $10 in her bank account. So thankfully she had a landlord who realized something was amiss but knew it could be fixed. She had a patient landlord. So we were able to do that. And like I say, her story is to be continued. That's not the end of it. We're still working on her. She came in this morning. I don't know how to work my thermostat. Thankfully, she's only 2 doors away, but that's just 1 in a million. That's one resident we have, but that's been the most impactful for me because it's changed her life. And to see that is just amazing. This impact statement that I have up is from Ben Gilchrist, and this just appeared in the Around the Block last year, and this was unsolicited. So I was like, wow, that just really touched me. That that's our great partner, and but yeah. So thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you so much. I just need to remind, we have a little bit of a tight schedule today, so we just have about 8 minutes left for the last 2 presentations.
I'll make it quick. So
Prior to the Neighborhood Developer Project, staff at the Crescent Valley Resource Center were doing their best to serve their residents with programs that supported the community. However, they knew that they could do more to assist, but just didn't have the resources or capacity, like my counterparts have said before today. Often the work they did was done off the side of their desks in an attempt to support residents with more complex needs as much as they could. And then these are just some of our statistics. We run breakfast programs. As you can see with emergency food, we went up from 21 packs to 96 to date. It's one of our most sought after programs with our residents. And then just going forward with the project. So for over a year now, I've cultivated relationships with residents in the Crescent Valley community, 31 of whom I've met with on a long-term basis to provide support from housing to food security issues. It ranges. Now, the CVRC has the capacity to not only refer residents to resources, but also follow them along their journey and conduct that follow-up support. So overall, the center's capacity has increased. I have spent 780 hours working with residents and have also been available if crises arise, because as Mary said, they often do. And then one of the other big things was capacity building piece for this position includes increasing our reach with other organizations. So again, we always had those connections, but now we have that one person who's able to go, okay, I know this process. I know the person to contact that works there. And just for an example, this, especially when it comes to housing, because it's a pretty big topic right now. Before, because I was in the Crescent Valley community, which is social housing, I wasn't seeing cases of homelessness or working on these projects. However, as time has gone on, I have been working with people who are homeless, and it brings up that need to know those processes, to know those resources that you have. So getting them on the by names list, completing questionnaires, adding them to the MB housing waitlist, connecting them with the proper housing organization. So I think that's a big piece of this. It's you're getting that deeper connection, and you're getting to understand the services even more and their workers that are there. And then just to give you the impact story. So M was a longtime older adult resident of Crescent Valley, and she often stopped into the center several times a week just to chat and use our resources. And it was about 2 years ago that she disclosed the abuse she was dealing with in her home. So her granddaughter lived with her and used substances regularly, often destroying M's apartment and physically abusing her. The police and adult protection were called multiple times, but it appeared that nothing was being done to improve the situation. So with the introduction of the neighborhood developer position, I was able to spend intensive time with M and work on her case, building upon that trust that already existed with the other staff in the center. So we connected with MB Housing, and we were able to go to her apartments to build her comfort level and support her in her leaving the abusive situation. So she has since moved into her new unit and was happy to have a new space, one that was safe and her own. It was finally time to focus on her. So I feel like without this position, and I think my counterparts would agree, M may still have been in an abusive situation and dealing with its effects. The capacity to work one-on-one and follow her journey allowed for the opportunity to support her needs and promote positive change. And I'm going to pass it off to Tim. Thank you.
Hello. I'm at the Carlton Community Center in Lower West Side. Just to look at what our center was doing before, we were doing about 80 grab-and-go meals a week. That was somebody taking time out of their full-time job to do grab-and-go, and now I get to do that as my full-time job. So it lets me focus on that while they focus on their job. We've actually upped it to 120 a week. Before, our emergency food pantry was kind of helter-skelter because it was all three of the other staff were kind of pitching in, and but now that's my full-time job, and we actually added a social enterprise to help support that, which is awesome. Same with income tax. Before, we were around the 300 mark, and we've upped that. And I think Tamara said it's about 30 minutes per. That's what you get. 30 to do intake. Yeah, so about 30 minutes per tax return, which was the three other staff. That's part of their full-time job, leaving it to go do this, where now I get to do that. And it's actually a great time for me to meet residents, where they come in once a year for tax return, but they don't know all the other stuff we offer. So it's a really cool time for me to get to meet them and interact. And as well as our GED upstairs, we've referred a lot of our residents to that. They didn't know it was so close. A lot of the time they say, GED, I got to go south end, I got to go north, I'm not doing that. But now they know it's in their community and it's a lot more accessible to them. Me at my center, I have 13 long-term active residents that I work with, and if I don't hear from them every 3 days, I get worried, and we reach out and we talk to them. And about 25 other residents who come to us when they need stuff, probably once a month or something like that. The social enterprise I talked about our emergency pantry is our Shoots microgreens. So I actually get to run that with the kids. They get to learn about making food, healthy food, harvesting it and selling it. So that's a really cool double-edged sword where we get to make money, support our program, and the kids get a lot out of it. We did our asset-based community development focus group, and the biggest thing that came out of that in our community, which, like Caitlin said, kind of comes against what popular belief is. Our residents feel super safe in their community. They know where to go, where not to go, and for them, it's not a safety issue where, as outsiders looking in, it kind of is like, oh, that's scary, I'm not going there. And one resident that I've been working with almost the entire time I've been at the Carlton, he says this a lot, and he's super gracious for all the help he gets, and he says, I can't wait to get working again on my feet so I can get back to the Carlton. So it's one of those things where we never ask for anything back, but he's so gracious for all of our help that he wants to turn it around and be on the other side of the relationship. Thank you.
So we will wrap this up quick. So as you can see, every neighborhood is different, and the approach taking that we went from the residents' needs up, as opposed to us determining what their needs are and trying to do it that way, has been a success for each neighborhood for what they've needed. So we really want to thank you for your time today, and we welcome any questions you may have.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of familiar faces out there over the years, and I know I don't get to spend as much time as I used to with you, but I just want to explain something that some people in other levels of government, and perhaps even this one, don't understand. I often hear the comment, oh, we spend so much money on poverty. We spend so much money. Where does it all go? You know, if they could hear this presentation, if they could realize that thousands, literally thousands of income tax forms are filled out every year by you people, otherwise they wouldn't get done. If they understood that hundreds of people, you know, are looked at every week in our neighborhoods, they're looked after, they're housed. When I hear terms like HIFIS and by name list and coordinated access, I know you people are out there because I know those terms too. And those are all terms that are used to house people. So when I see all of this happening through, you know, 3 or 4 paid positions and a whole bunch of volunteers in our community, I say keep that money coming because you're getting more return for your investment this way than any other way that I can see. You know, and people don't understand it. But I mean, what you people are doing for your communities is priceless, absolutely priceless. So keep up the good work, and I'm really glad that you came in today and shared this with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now over to Councillor Lowe.
John, yeah, okay, great. Similar to John, like as a counselor, I'm fortunate to have, you know, Pulse Community Center at Waterloo Street Village, and what I lack is any organization in what we call Old East St. John. There's none there. And any dialogue I have with that comes from individual people, which is hard to deal with. But I just give an example of the help I get, at least from the different. Yesterday morning, 8:30, I'm at Pulse begging for help from Mary because she knows the community people that I want to deal with, right? And it's very important for her to do that for me because I'm doing it for another cause. Then I shoot over to West Side because I have a meeting there at 12 o'clock with Arlene Dunn and those 2 people sitting right there with something that's been dragging on now for about 4 years. And luckily we got Arlene involved, and that's going back to a meeting tonight with Arlene where we're going to visit this person. So to me, the work that's done by the community centers is unbelievable. I know the help I'm getting from Mary, if I did it straight on, it wouldn't be exactly the same way. It's going to be done by Marion already kind of smoothing things over. Then I can move in to talk, like, you know what I mean? And to me, whatever money, like John said, just keep giving you money to keep these 4 organizations going, because as counselors, like, you know, there's no way we can deal with everybody in the community. It started this morning at 20 after 7 by the water being shut off on Prince William Street, and the restaurants closed, and the coffee shop can't do coffee, and, you know, and these are the things we deal with ordinary individual people, but when we can deal with a community, it's way, way better. And whatever money you're getting, like John said, keep it coming. Simple as that there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. I definitely echo my colleagues' comments here. I think your work you're doing is so incredibly important. And to me, it's like it's a really great example of human-centered design. You looked at your users of this system that we live in and found a way to reach them more effectively and more appropriately and more efficiently and more safely. It just really is a beautiful example. And I wish you all the best, and we'll figure out what we can do on our end to try and support. So really appreciate you all coming out and explaining your stories, and hopefully we can do more good work in the future. So thank you all so much. Okay, so I just need to receive for information. Councillor Lowe, would you like to move the recommendation for receive?
Move it if John seconds.
John will
There's only
second.
2 of us here.
Okay, excellent. Perfect. Real good teamwork today. So on the question, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you so much. Okay, so now moving on to item 6.3. We have Ms. Amy McClellan, the General Manager of the Canada Games Aquatic Centre, here to present.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Growth Committee. So I appreciate having the opportunity to present to you today on our 2021 annual report for the St. John Aquatic Centre Commission. And I would like to begin just by noting the value of the Canada Games Aquatic Centre and providing the overall quality of life for our community. And it also plays an invaluable role when we speak of growth in attracting and retaining residents to our region. Recreation amenities such as the Aquatic Centre are just a key contributor to our overall growth and prosperity, particularly when we're looking at the uptown core. So the Commission and staff of the Aquatic Centre have an incredibly strong commitment to supporting the health, vitality, and wellness of the overall Greater St. John community. And of course, the Aquatic Centre is well known for its pools, but I did want to take a moment just to note the other services and offerings that extend beyond aquatics that are listed on this slide. So it provides a more complete view of this valuable asset and how it's serving the community. And that includes not only the services that are directly offered, but the supporting services that make those possible. So it's the Aquatic Centre that provides the leadership courses that give the first aid and National Life Saving Society training that's necessary for the lifeguards and the swim instructors to perform their roles. And of course, this inventory of services extends beyond the walls of the facility. As you'll note, in the summer season, we're lifeguarding at beaches across Greater St. John, including 2 in Quispam, Sis, and 4 in St. John, and also providing the lifeguarding and the swimming lessons at the Qplex. So with respect to the St. John Aquatic Centre Commission, and this is the board that governs the Canada Games Aquatic Centre, I'd like to mention that in 2021, they welcomed 4 new members. That included Peter Murray and David Connell, both of whom were appointed by the City of St. John. Also was welcomed Councillor Greg Norton, who joined the commission as ex officio for the Mayor of St. John, and Jody Forgy playing the role as ex officio for the City of St. John Finance Commissioner. And when we look back to past performance, 2019 did see normal operations taking place. However, there were challenges related to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic that started to hit and create significant constraints in overall operations in the last 2 years. So revenues suffered greatly as a result, and it was from a variety of restrictions that were required to remain in compliance with the province's mandatory order. Those included restrictions on capacity, but it also had impacts in terms of individuals who would traditionally work in the uptown core and hold memberships at the facility to come during their lunch hours or after work. All of a sudden they were working from home, and some were continuing to do so for a prolonged period of time. And just an overall reluctance still existed in the community to return to public settings, just based on varying comfort levels. So those compounding factors, of course, resulted in significant cash flow constraints, but the facility did manage to continue operations. So with regard to the 2021 annual report, you'll note in the audited financial statements that the year did result in an operating deficit of approximately $214,000. And although COVID-19 continued to impact overall revenue, there were some increases that were noted over the previous year. So first, looking at the contracts and bookings that are involved with the Canada Games Aquatic Centre. There was a contract in place for lifeguarding and swimming lessons at the Quispamsis Qplex. That wasn't able to proceed in 2020 due to the closure of that facility during that summer season. However, that contract did go forward in 2021. Contracts for lifeguarding beaches in St. John and Quispamsis had run at reduced hours in 2020, but coverage returned to normal in 21. And the period of closure of the Canada Games Aquatic Centre itself and the other impacts resulted in a lower number of lane rentals and aquatic events at the onset of the pandemic, but revenue from lane rentals did increase in 2021. So that's a reflection of both a higher number of bookings, some events starting to return, but also there was a slight increase in lane rental rates that have been implemented. And with regard to memberships, when we had the prolonged closure in 2020, of course, membership fees were not charged during that time frame, which was approximately 3 months worth of revenue. So you'll see that increase in comparison to 2021. And then turning over to expenses, you'll see some significant variances. They include cost reductions in utilities, chemical consumption, overall wages that were due to the extended shutdown at the onset of the pandemic. However, there's also increases in certain expenses related to precautionary measures and supplies that were required when COVID-19, for instance, plexiglass, sanitizing supplies and such that were purchased that same year. Additionally, there were costs associated with transitioning to new software for programming and registration administration in 2020, as well as a significant contra agreement that was reflected in marketing expenses that included a check exchange, and that was not repeated in 2021. So finally, just given the cash flow issues, there were expenses related to overall facility maintenance, and those were really restricted only to items requiring immediate attention in order to remain sustainable. Looking at our workforce, we had 29 full-time equivalents at the end of 2021, and that represents a decrease of from 2020, which we had 33. So the community as a whole has experienced exceptional challenges related to the ongoing pandemic. And so during these trying times, we feel recreation and its contribution to the overall wellness of our community are more vital than ever before. The Canada Games Aquatic Centre plays an incredibly valuable role to continue to provide opportunities for the residents of Greater St. John to safely engage in recreation, to remain active during the various phases of the pandemic, and to be able to do so knowing that we are in full compliance with any restrictions in place and keeping them safe. We were also relieved to be able to have sufficient staff recruited in 2021 to conduct those external operations at beaches and the Qplex throughout the summer season. This provided employment for students who held positions as lifeguards, swim instructors, and camp counselors. The target was set to increase the overall number of hours provided of paid lifeguarding services and swimming instructions for all of those locations outside of the facility proper. And the target was 5,000 hours. However, that was exceeded, and 5,230 hours was the increase that was seen over 2020. Revenue from rentals increased significantly over the previous year, and the facility was able to remain open for 50 weeks. So of course, that was a continued unknown in 2021. I would just like to finish off by noting 2020 was very much a year of great uncertainty. 2021 was it was about staying afloat, not really knowing what the long term was going to be. I think as a community, we didn't know what was around the next corner. And in 2022, we're starting to see a gradual return to pre-pandemic activity. So I want to finish off by talking about how bright the future of the Aquatic Center is. We're already doing so much for the community, but I am really excited about how much more we have, the potential we have to provide additional services and just support community wellness. So as part of the Memorandum of Understanding for some COVID-19 relief funding that was received by the Canada Games Aquatic Centre earlier this year, the St. John Aquatic Centre Commission did work and was fully cooperative with the City of St. John to find a suitable long-term business model. So to that end, a project team was created to provide a revitalization plan, and that team was comprised of city staff, myself, and representatives from our St. John Aquatic Centre Commission. And the project team worked over the last few months to determine best options for increasing revenue. So the revitalization plan that was drafted was presented to the St. John Aquatic Centre Commission in August and was approved by the Commission and then also by St. John Common Council earlier this month. So those new revenue streams will be researched and developed in 2023 to map out specific details, establish partnerships, and determine revenue projections for 2024 and beyond. That concludes my presentation, pending any questions you may have.
Much. Is there any questions from committee? Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you so much for the presentation. You know, I said this to you before and I'll say it again. This is the best news I've heard coming out of the Aquatic Center in a long, long time. So I think that you and the Commission are doing a great job trying to move the facility forward and just keep up the good work.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, we have a mover. We have a seconder. Thank you for your work, Amy. I love going there. It has a bright energy about it. It just is a lovely, healthy, wonderful place for our community. So thank you for bringing it towards an even brighter future. It's really evident in your approach. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. So next up, sorry, I'll call the question on that. We accept this receipt for information. I didn't call the question, I don't think. Yeah. Thank you for going with me on Robert's rules. So up next we have item 6.4, which is the Harbour Station Commission. So we're going to hear from General Manager Mike Goodell. Oh, and just one note for the committee as well. All these are from 2021, so I'm glad we're seeing the future, but if we have any questions, it's supposed to be focused on that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Mike Goodell, and I've got with me Kirby Williams, who's been our Director of Finance for the last 28 years. Unfortunately, our chairman got called away this morning, Jamie Lemessurier, last minute. Being a lawyer, I guess it's a little more important than coming along here with us. Anyway, he sends his regrets. As everybody is aware, 2001 had its challenges due to the ongoing pandemic. All events at TD Station were either canceled or postponed. That included the majority of our hockey games, our trade shows were all canceled, cheerleading, basketball, our Midway, Dance Quest, Monster Truck, even the Remembrance Day ceremonies were canceled. The building had a shortfall of about $750,000 in 2021. And unlike the city of Moncton and the city of St. John's, Newfoundland, they went back to the municipality and asked for an additional $1 million to cover their deficit. We're pleased to say that we only requested $40,000 in addition from the City of St. John to offset the shortfall. We also had a few extra legal expenses, and if we didn't have these, we would have broken even or done better than budget. We opened in 1993, October, and we've hosted thousands of events since. We've had over 11 million people through our doors. Over the years, we have hosted 25 Cirque du Soleil shows, superstars such as Celine Dion, Garth Brooks, Elton John, Aerosmith, Bob Dylan, and hundreds of other performers. We were home to the American Hockey League for the first 10 years, the St. John Flames, and over the last 17 years, the St. John Sea Dogs. We also are an annual location for our Midway, the Home Show, Rhoda's Christmas Craft Show, and the Leisure Time RV Show. We have approximately 200 employees, with the majority being part-time staff. We are pleased to say that we've had over 5,000 unionized employees since we opened the doors in 1993, and we have not had one grievance with staff. We recently had an independent energy audit done, and we were told by MCW, a leading engineering firm in Canada, that for our size and age, we have one of the most energy efficient buildings in all of Canada. In June of this year, we were fortunate to host the Memorial Cup. We had 43,000 people through our doors and did $551,000 in food and beverage over the 8 nights. Craig Button, a host for TSN, and stated on national TV that the city of St. John and the building looked better than the Vancouver Olympics. This event would not have taken place without the assistance of the federal government, $1 million they contribute, the provincial government, $1.1 million, and the city of St. John, approximately $800,000, with the majority of that in asset renewal. Like other national events, the East Coast Music Awards, the Canadian Country Music Awards, the 5 figure skating shows that we've had, and the 3 World Curling events, you cannot buy that type of TV exposure when you hit TSN across national TV. Going forward, the City of St. John is in discussions with a third-party management group called the Oakview Group to oversee the management of the facility. The Oakview Group has made 3 trips to St. John TD station, and on September 7th met with the city's negotiating team. When the city receives their final proposal, it'll go back to the Harbour Station Commission whether to accept it or not. I will tell you, as an operator of buildings for over 40 years, the deficit will increase. Oakview Group is a great company, but they're not going to do this for nothing. They will receive a management fee, and this will all be discussed with council at a later date, I'm sure. And part of that agreement, with the exception of me, as I was supposed to retire months ago, is that all full-time staff will remain with the building if Oakview Group is successful. There's always some doom and gloom, and I will state that we have a lot of competition in Moncton with the Avenir Centre. If there is only one show going to Moncton or to New Brunswick, it will be going to Moncton. They have a better location, drawing from all parts of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island. They have a much larger seating capacity with an extra 2,500 seats. It's a newer and better building, obviously, for $120 million. And they've got a much larger central population. The biggest hurdle is that Live Nation also is Canada's largest promoter. And they also own Ticketmaster, which is in Moncton. So it's a win-win on both sides when they do a show. We did the exact same thing to Moncton and Fredericton in 1993. We took all of the shows in the Maritimes, in New Brunswick, from those 2 venues. I will state that there's a possibility, strong possibility, that basketball will return to the Maritimes in March or April of 2023. We do have a signed contract going forward if the league materializes. There are 2 years remaining in the Sea Dogs contract, and only Scott McCain knows whether he will return or not. We have been told by the Oakview Group that oversees buildings as tenants, the NHL, the AHL, the Canadian Hockey League, that our deal with the St. John Sea Dogs is the worst that they have ever seen. The team does not pay rent, receives a subsidy from the City of St. John outside of our operating budget. They eliminated the participation payment, which paid the building in excess of 6 figures in different years, and they receive 100% of the naming rights. Basically, when we host a hockey game, we lose money every time we play hockey in the building. 2021 was a dismal year, obviously due to the pandemic. We managed to hold our own. 2022 is a lot stronger, with all of our events returning. We recently hosted Bryan Adams with about 5,000 people, Dallas Smith and Blue Rodeo also this year. All of our trade shows are back, our carnival's back. I will state on record, 2022, we will have a surplus versus our budget for this calendar year. And that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Goodell. Over to Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, Mike, just about the employees, are they unionized?
Yes, they are with you.
So you made a statement, did you not, that if somebody comes in and takes it over, the employees all stay?
Employees will all stay.
Is that in writing in that?
Well, the contract we've only been in discussions. The contract has not been finalized.
But if it is finalized, the employees will stay. Good, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mike, you've got some pretty bad news there from what I'm hearing, and hopefully the facility going forward under new management will see some brighter days. But it's hard to compete with brand new facilities, no matter where you are. So St. John's not unique in that way. We're trying to compete with a community that has, a much larger customer drawing area and a much newer facility. So I'm not going to compare, our harbor station with their Avier State facility at all. I mean, they do their thing, we do ours, and hopefully going forward, we'll do a good job as best we can. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. Okay, so on this motion is just a receipt for information. So moved by Councillor Lowe, seconded by Deputy. On the question, all in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Goodell.
Thanks.
Okay. On to the finale, which today is item 6.5 with St. John Transit. And we have Ian Fogern, the Director of Transit, here to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Growth Committee. I'm pleased to be here today. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. I know there's many slides. A lot of them I'm not even going to speak to. You'll have them for information. And I'm not going to speak a whole lot to the annual report as well. It's in there, but I do want to focus a little bit on going forward. But I will, a couple significant things happened in 2021 that I think are worthy of note for the Growth Committee. When we achieved in early 21 legislative change, that was huge, getting a private members bill passed through the House for City of St. John, and which enabled the signing of the Management Services Agreement. The Management Services Agreement is what's led to the capability really of transit really to transform and to get other management staff involved in the day-to-day operations. So it's been a huge piece. And as you know, the Management Service Agreement came into effect on October 1st, and shortly after, actually on that date, I was shifted over to transit with a mandate to modernize the service. There we go. So just at a glance, transit provides over 1,400 service hours per week. There's 70 employees, including full-time and part-time. There's currently 40 40-foot buses in service. We have over 725 bus stops throughout the city, 21 routes, and travel over 1,400,000 kilometers a year. Paratransit operates 7 vehicles with no fixed route. It does operate within the city limits and offers a daily service Monday to Saturday. So I spoke a little bit about our redesign. I just want to emphasize there are some goals in our redesign, overarching. One is essentially to get more people using the service. We want to be a sustainable service, an efficient service, and desirable one for the community. This aligns a lot with a lot of the other plans developed by the city. I'll say we took in consideration Move SJ. There's also parts of the Stantec report that were taken into account in our plans for modernizing transit. There's a lot of a varied list of other city plans that also deal with the transit system. And I'll speak with this for a second. Just why are we modernizing transit? Why was the whole initiative to sign the management services agreement? What's the whole point of this? And really, the current service was not aligned with the current plan or visions, I'd say, of the City of St. John and of Council. So the options we had, whether to reduce service hours, increase fares, or really change the way the service is delivered. So we chose to change the way the service was delivered. There are many things that need to be fixed within the system. We needed better asset maintenance. The building's only from 2009. There are many things that need to be fixed in there. We're not taking care of our shelters. The bus ages of the buses are older than they need to be, costing more in maintenance. There's a rebuild of an engine built into that replacement cycle because of the age of the buses. Routing has not really changed a whole lot in the past decades. It's not really serving our community as well as it should, and we're not really competing with those who have an automobile. There's some other areas. Staffing levels are not adequate to maintain the transit service as is. You really had a reduced manpower in order to keep the system running based on the lower revenues received in 2021 and 2020. And management, you just didn't have the number of management staff needed in order to be able to operate the size of transit system. Having 1.5 management staff for that type of operation just didn't work. But the management service agreement is what's making all the difference now. When we took a look at this, at our ridership, we saw some opportunity for change, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, so we will be back to council with the full scope of what our entire plan is, but this is a snapshot of what it was. We saw that 74% of our riders are really on 4 routes, and then there's a grouping of other, I guess, other lines as high as 20%, and then the lower part of 6% maintaining the bottom part. So we saw that there's opportunity for change here. Obviously, the routes, it doesn't matter how many people are on the route, it costs the same to operate. So you're getting a different return on your investment depending on how many people are on the bus. So we took a look at on-demand transit, and as you know, we have drafted plans for an on-demand service. When we did this, we didn't do it haphazardly. We didn't just look at the numbers, but we also, this is a planned improvement. These next 2 slides, I'm not really going to go over them in detail here, but they're part of our planning principles. When we set up this plan, these are things that we wanted to abide by. That really led to some decisions we made on what the new system would look like. We also knew it was important to be future ready. We know that modernization includes the tech. We know that some of this tech is, of course, new to us, but it is not new to a transit system. I can highlight a couple of things on the bottom of this. Our stop amenities, as far as consideration for mobility impairments, we know there's great room for an improvement there. We haven't done a whole lot of investment in our bus stops in a while. Integration with active transportation. We also know that from the draft strategic plan that's being considered, there's high emphasis on active transportation. We also know City Council has adopted a plan to move to net zero by 2040. And we know that transportation within the City of St. John accounts for 40% of our CO2 emissions. So transit has a big part to play in this, given that we travel over 1.4 million miles. There's other items that are on the go as well that started in 2021 with a fleet to transit move, which will enable clearing the land at North Depot for redevelopment. There's governance issues and, like I said, investigating hydrogen and electric options. Other long-term project items, we've developed a long-term capital plan. We want to look at a bus stop or an improvement plan. We've done extensive consultation in the first quarters of Q1 and Q2 with the community. And we're also developing a new paratransit agreement and a plan on how we provide those services to the community. All this is to say that we had some values when we really took a look at defining this plan. And these were defined early on before we created the entire plan. We know that our employees are critical to our success. We know that any change that we do has to be relevant to St. John. We, as much as we like to say we're unique, sometimes we're not, sometimes we are, but there are things that we do have to consider for St. John. We do want to increase ridership, And we do recognize that it's an essential service. Many people rely on it to get to their jobs, the education, healthcare access, and whatever it may be. And we also are working closely with the Ability Advisory Committee on these changes moving forward. So we do want to become the green option. We want to recognize that there are opportunities there in the redesign. We want to leverage new technologies. We want to be fiscally responsible. One of the most important parts is the transit system itself relies on stability. One of the worst things you can do for a transit system is to constantly make changes month to month or even year to year. People make long-term decisions on their assets and what they do and how they travel. So it's important to have that stability. So once we make this change, we'll make it wholesale change, and we'll try to stick with it. So the planning part of this change is huge. You don't want to go back and mess with it later on. With that, I tried to be as brief as possible to get people finished at a growth committee, but if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions from committee today for Mr. Fogan? All right, Deputy.
Ian, you're doing a fantastic job. Every time I see a presentation, there's something new in it that's positive and progressive. So, it's been a pretty positive day, folks, I just want to say one thing. We still need that bench over there in Lancaster Avenue. Thanks.
True. Yep.
Yes, my constituents would like that too. But no, thank you, Ian, for this. And as like Deputy said, it's always exciting when you get to stand up here and tell us more about what's coming, and really happy that jingle's coming back. So really looking forward to hearing what you come up with there. So thank you so much. We'll take a receive and file for information from the committee. Deputy, seconded by Councillor Lowe. And on the question, all right, okay. And now I just need a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
Chairman.
Yeah.
I probably made a mistake. Well, I know I made a mistake.
Oh.
On the consent agenda, the annual report of the Trade and Convention Center.
Yeah.
I'd like to say something about it, and somehow I missed it. Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can?
I think so. I mean,
okay. I read it over, parts of it, and something that's bothered me is that I attended the St. John Energy something at the Delta. They were there all day, I believe. There was a bar, finger food afterwards, which I was there. I didn't go to the meeting. I went afterwards, the finger food, so it was paid for, no doubt, by St. John Energy. I do not understand how any organization controlled by the city of St. John goes anywhere else and spends money when the citizens pay the deficit of the Trade and Convention Center. And that has bothered me since the day I was there. And I was waiting for the opportunity to bring it up. I seen this, and for some, whether I was sleeping or dozing off or something, I missed this consent. And I just want that registered in that part of it, right? Anything, it would be, in my opinion, like Ian's people, hiring buses when we got buses to take people on a tour of, we'll say, the port. Like, I do not understand why we spend money to somebody else when we pick up deficits. We pick up his deficit and we pick up the deficit in the Trade and Convention Center, I believe. Thank you for allowing me to.
thank you for your comments. I'm not sure if there's any comment from staff at all.
Yes, Madam Chair, through you to the councillor. No, I think it's an excellent point, and certainly from a management perspective, the organization does utilize the Trade Center. In fact, we use it on a regular basis for city events, and we make it our best effort to leverage not only the Trade and Convention Center, but the other community centers that we have partnerships with, and we will do so going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I think we can take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Lowe, Deputy Mayor, on the question, all in favor? Aye. Thank you very much for joining us.